It's finally here. We are finally less than 24 hours from the spring tournament. Can you feel it? Can you feel the
Oh,
excitement?
I'm ready. I'm so ready. It doesn't feel that long ago, actually, the last tournaments, but at the same time, it's been way too long since there's been any sumo on. So yeah, I'm real excited. I'm excited also because the the people that are going to be out this tournament haven't been announced yet, so there's still that like wonder of if everyone's going to be healthy. I'm sure they won't be. Maybe you have more
Well, we
information
can
about
actually kind of tell who's in and out based on what the matchups are. Like, unless somebody makes, like the schedule that has been released for the first 2 days is with the assumption that everyone who's listed is gonna be competing. And that strongly indicates that nobody who hasn't been, forced to retire due to bullying is um is
Oh,
being left out. You
ah,
know,
okay.
like I'm looking at it right now, and like even the people that we thought were gonna be out for like, 4 to 6 months are in it. Like Taka Keisho is scheduled to fight. Your beloved Aoyama is set to fight. Like, and I thought Aoyama had like torn his ACL and was gonna be out for like 6 months or something, but I guess you just don't need either you don't need an ACL to do sumo, or what we learned about his injury was very overblown. Hokuto Fuji and Takayasu, both guys who were out there both fighting. There is not a single person other than Hokuseiho from the top two divisions who is off of the Torakumi for the first 2 days. Isn't that special?
Yeah, well, I guess we'll see if it's legit or not, and we'll see who's really in it. So, just going in order of importance, we got Terunofuji, the Yokozuna, at the top of the standings, of course. But in the last tournament, there was a lot of question of whether he would even be in it. And with this one too, even though we're a day away from the tournaments, no one's really sure if he's actually going to be competing. Certainly, whether he'll compete for the whole tournament. That's really the big question, and that's the case also for. Taka Keisho, one of the four Ozeki that we have now, he pulled out of the tournament after 4 matches, I think, last tournament, or possibly two, with a serious, serious injury that could be potentially career-ending. And we don't know yet exactly what's happening with that and if he's going to compete at all in this tournament. And then also Hoshoryu, another one of the four Ozeki, who also had to pull out of the last tournament, who was on a great run, but had to pull out due to injury. No word on whether or not he's for sure going to be in this tournament or not. Of the three, you'd probably think Hoshoryu is the most likely to compete in terms of severity of injury. He seems like he's probably going to be okay. And then the other two that you mentioned, Takayasu and Hokuto Fuji, a little bit lower down in the Banzake, but they were big question marks in terms of health, and we're not sure what's going to happen yet. But two people who are not question marks in terms of health, as far as we know, and who knows what could change later, are the other two Ozaki we didn't mention. We got Kotonowaka and Kirishima. And considering the injury possibilities of Hoshoryu and Terunofuji, are we looking at these two as the favorites for this tournament?
I think we have to. I mean, I think I've made my opinion on Kirishima's readiness to be a Yokozuna pretty clear. But that said, like, there's a very strong case to be made that he is the second best wrestler on this Banzuke, and obviously his rank reflects that. Kota Nowaka, if not for the policy that any new Ozeki is automatically relegated to the last available Ozeki spot, he would probably be ranked ahead of Takakeisho, and maybe even would have deserved to be ranked ahead of Hoshoryu if it was purely based on the merit of the last one. So I think there is a very good chance that much like much like the last Basho, Kotonowaka and Kirishima sort of hold the entire tournament in their hands. I think it's very easy to make that argument. On day 15, one of them will either be, responsible for like taking down the top contender or might even make a playoff, something like that.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like the betting odds agree with you there, that these two really are the most likely. And I think that might be a great segue into the first game I'd love to play today, which is talking about our Kachi Clash predictions. So for those who are listening who aren't familiar, Kachi Clash is basically It's a betting game on who is the most likely to have a great performance in the sumo tournament. And the way it works is that you pick someone from each of the sort of tiers of competition. So you can choose one person from the Ozekis and Yokozuna. You can choose one person from the Sekiwake and Komusubi positions, one person from the M1 through M5 positions, one from the M6 through M10, and one from the M11 through M17 ranks. So that's a total of 5 people that you get on your team. And I thought a good place for us to start would be talking about our picks from the top rank, who I'm assuming your pick for that, as well as mine, is our pick for who's going to win the tournament.
Probably. I mean, barring something unexpected, I think it's safe to say that for the foreseeable future, the front runners for all of these tournaments are going to be in the Yokozuna or Ozeki range. There isn't anybody yet who is below that rank that I think we can, feel really, really strongly is like ready to win it. Like maybe if Hakuoho comes back in July or even May, if he has an exceptional tournament, he could win a whole somebody like him who comes in at like like the bottom of the totem pole, he could win a tournament because he gets just such a liquid diet in the first week that it's possible for him. But that's a long way of saying I think that the best wrestlers are at the top of the Banzuke right now and will be for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it seems like it. That definitely seems to be the way the Banzuke is shaping up these days. So I guess let's just jump right into it. There are 5 people in that range. We have 4 Ozeki: Kirishima, Hoshoryu, Takakeisho, Kotonowaka, newly promoted Kotonowaka,
Hmm.
based on his excellent performance in the last one, and the Yokozuna himself, Terunofuji, who won the last tournament.
Hmm.
So worth noting that the winners of every single tournament in the last 6, I believe, 7 straight tournaments has come from this group. So when we're talking about the favorites, like we have a lot of evidence for that claim that the winner's probably going to come from this group of 5 guys. But which one? Uh, my pick, maybe surprisingly, is Kirishima to win this one.
Hmm.
What do you think?
I think he's a good pick. He's not my pick.
Yeah,
For reasons that I've said previously, but I'll reiterate them. I just don't think that Kirishima has that dog in him right now. I think that I just have a gut feeling that the loss to Terano Fuji in the way that he did, combined with just that continuous ability to make mistakes. He's just not quite ready for what some of the others are going to bring to him, which is why I think that Coach Nowaka is going to have the best record of the top five, and he is my also my pick to win the whole thing. I think that he's going to mark his ascension to Ozeki, the rank that his father never achieved, by winning a tournament, something I'm pretty sure his father never achieved. And it will be, the start of his first rope run as Kotozakura the second, come May.
that'd be great. Honestly, I'd love to see it. I think my reason for being a little skeptical of Kotonowaka in this one is just that it feels almost hard to believe that he can maintain this impressive run for this long. I sort of feel like Kirishima has a little bit of the longevity factor and the familiarity and comfort in this position, in this kind of position with this kind of pressure. And I feel like there's maybe a long track history of guys newly promoted to Ozeki not having the best of starts, not having a Yusho winning start. And I think it's probably at least it's a reason to be skeptical that he can't maintain the form that he's been in the last few tournaments. But I'm not denying in any way that he has that form coming in. I just think that the pressures of being an Ozeki could maybe be a little much right now. It also seems like there's just a bit of a uh, what do you call it? A sort of merry-go-round of who's going to win each Yusho right now, and it feels like it's Kirishima's turn. Certainly if it's not Terunofuji winning another, if he's not competing, I gotta think it's going to be Kirishima. It feels
That's the beautiful dilemma that I think we're in with our Ozeki right now. It's been 25 years since we went even a single Basho without having a Yokozuna, on the Banzuke, if not actively competing. And, the list of Ozaki who were competing at that time is pretty much a hall of fame of all-time great Yokozuna. So I am kind of hopeful that this merry-go-round that we're seeing right now is sort of the precursor to, two or three of these guys, ascending to Yokozuna within, you know, 2 years, maybe even one, maybe even by
Well,
the end of this year if we're lucky.
yeah, I one of the things I was thinking about earlier today is that it feels to me that if Kotonowaka were to win this Yusho and then another and become a Yokozuna right away, it would be too much too soon. It doesn't mean that he's not capable of it, but it almost feels like he has to wait his turn a little bit. Kirishima's been up there, he's been in that conversation for a while, and if Kirishima's ever going to be a Yokozuna, surely it should happen before Kotonowaka. I know that's not how it works in sports. You don't just get your turn because you were there longer. But it almost feels to me like if we want the storybook process of who is promoted and when, surely we would be rooting for it to be Kirishima sooner. I would think. Well, what are your thoughts on that? Does that matter at all?
I really don't know. It's just, sumo is, for one of the reasons that I know you love it so much, it really is like the ultimate meritocracy sport. It's not about, it's his turn. It's about proving it in the dohyo that you have what it takes to be essentially that living god that Terunofuji reminded us that he is, and that his many extremely talented predecessors have proven to be. I think that it's inarguable that all four of the guys at Ozeki have had that ability, but their ability to manifest a perfect 15 days just hasn't been there for any of them yet, save for obviously the seven combined, titles that Kirishima, Hoshoryu, and Takakeishu have won.
Sure. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and obviously that's the beauty of sumo is that if you earned it, if you did the winning, then you get the prize. So I guess we'll see what happens. And I would love for Kotonowaka to win a Yusho. I think that would be amazing. That would be a really exciting thing to see and to be looking forward to, is someone who's just so dominant, so ready, almost like unexpectedly. I would love to see that. So we'll see what happens with him. Hopefully these sections ahead of us won't take quite as long because there's probably not quite as much to talk about. But I'm curious your picks for the rest of our Kachi Clash. So for the next pick has to come from the Sanyaku
Mhm.
ranks that aren't at the top. We have Daisho Wakamoto Haru at the Sekiwake positions and Abi and Nishikigi at the Komusubi positions. And I think it's probably worth noting that although Abi and Nishikigi are in those positions, they kind of got there in a bit of a maybe not the most impressive means in the last tournaments.
No,
Uh,
I mean Abi needed to like Abi had the benefit of, after losing so much so early in the last one, they dumped him down to the rank and file where he was able to just mow guys down and reach the 8 and 7 that he needed, or I think it was 9 and 6, I don't remember, in order to get up there. And Nishikigi, I mean, honestly, he's lucky enough that he was even the one to be promoted to Komisubi 1 West. A lot of people made a strong case that Asanoyama deserved to get it because he had one more win, even though he was one rank below him in the previous one, but had that unfortunate dropout. And if he had won just one more, I don't think there's a question that Asanoyama would have reached Komusubi ahead of him. So yeah, you are 100% right. The Komusubi are not impressive, and I think for the umpteenth time in a row, not a single one of the Komusubi will make it to the will enjoy two consecutive Basho.
yeah, yeah, that sounds about right.
So I
And
assume you're taking either Daisho or Wakamoto
yes,
Haru as your
yes,
pick.
very, very, very excellent guess there. I went with Makamoto Haru, the
Hmm.
only one of the two only people who managed to get a win on Terunofuji in the last tournament.
Hmm.
Wakamoto Haru, I think he's the only Sanyaku who I think is really going to be locked in that spot for a long time. Who's up there? He just belongs in the Sanyaku.
Yeah, I mean, unless he has like one of those weird tournaments like he did, back in November, like he seems to have all of the tools. It's just he just seems to have those those writer's blocks every now and then. But, we'll see if he can carry the momentum of the last one into this one.
Who are you going for in that group?
Wakamoto Haru as well. Yeah,
Oh,
I think he's in fact I would not be shocked if he is in contention for the title. As for M1 through M5, who do you have?
I think we probably have the same person, so maybe we should try saying it at the same time. You ready?
One okay, after right after I say three, we'll say it,
Okay.
okay?
One,
One, two,
three,
three,
Pranayama.
Asanoyama.
Yes, okay.
Okay, okay, we are in sync.
That might have been a little bit messy sounding for the
Yeah,
listeners, but yeah, it's
I
got
mean, as with so many great wrestlers that have failed to become a yokozuna, really the biggest obstacle to Asanoyama reaching those Sanyaku heights again is Asanoyama's own body. He is the total package. He has the strength. He has the technique. But ever since that suspension, he just has not been able to demonstrate the health. And here we are, him needing, him having just turned 30 and needing a Kachikoshi in order to simply contend for a Komasubi spot.
yeah, it's a shame. It's struggling to see such a great athlete in any sport really who's just marred by injury, not getting to see their full potential and getting to see them have the kinds of careers they're capable of if it were only for their health. So frustrating always in sports, and we see it all the time, and it's just a shame. It's the will versus the body. Sometimes the will is strong, but the flesh is weak. The talent is
Yep.
strong, but the flesh is weak. That's what happens. But yeah, I'd love to see more from him. I'd love to see him just compete in 15 matches in this. And you know what? If he doesn't put up as impressive a run, at least we can say we got to see a full Asanayama tournament at M1. Although chances are he's going to really have his work cut out for him at N1, as we've seen. We always see the guys in those top Megashira ranks have really tough schedules at the beginning, and it could be almost impossible to recover from. Um,
I mean,
so
I'll say this in tournaments where Asanoyama has in tournaments where he has actually competed, he has not posted a losing record since 2019. And what I mean by that is, like discounting his Fusen losses, where like he had already pulled out and was sort of disqualified from that. He was 9-3 last one. He was 4-4 the tournament before that. He was 8-3 back in, I think that was July 2023. Then you have to go all the way back to then, of course he had that suspension and the injury. You have to go all the way back to 2019 to find a tournament where he was, posting a losing record without the Fusen you know, being an issue. So he can do it. If he can just hold up physically, I think he can do it. I think 8 wins should be expected, and that 10 or 11 is more than doable.
yeah, agreed. I'd love to see it. Love to see
But I will admit, you did point out rightfully that he is going to have to run through that gauntlet of facing all of the Ozeki and he's going to have to face all of the Sanyaku within the first few days. I'm pretty sure he fights Terunofuji on day two. No, he does not. Okay, on day two he faces Kotonowaka. So first 2 days, he's got two Ozeki. Granted, he's got the injured one and the young upstart one, but he's got losing records against both of them. So, oh no, I'm sorry, he has a winning record against Kotonowaka. So, we'll see. We'll see how he does, but I'm confident that he can at least post a winning record.
such is the life of the high Megashira, always back and forth. You get up to the high M's, and then you get quickly sent back down by the Sanyaku. The ones who manage to make it past that, they've really, experienced the trial by fire to get there. So just to quickly close out the Kachi Clash talk, we don't have to spend as much time on some of these, but in the group of M6 through M10, uh, I'm curious to hear your pick. I personally went with Shodai, because I felt that he was the most likely who has a history of competing well without having a very tricky injury record in the last couple tournaments like Takayasu and Hokuto Fuji. I thought that Shodai would have a strong tournament, and also being at that M10 position further away from the top means fewer matches against Sanyaku, at least early on. So I thought that pick made sense for me. How about you?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I was torn between that one and the one that I did make. I'm gonna go with Takayasu. It's more of a
Yeah.
vibes pick than anything else. I just think that Takayasu is somebody who thrives when he's lower on the Banzuke, and
Does.
I'm
His record is excellent at the position he's in now, or in and around there. But the reason that I didn't go with Takayasu, who was my other consideration there, was his injuries in the last couple tournaments. Really, his
Yeah, and I'm just like I'm just like kind of crossing my fingers. It's kind of like a coin flip. Either I'm either gonna get like 10 wins or I'm gonna get 15 losses from him. So I'm just kind of hoping that it turns up heads.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think the strategy for Kachi Clash, or a similar tournaments like it, is a little different than your actual expectation of who you think will win, because you have to be a little bit more conservative and you have to get those wins. You can't risk injury. And so I went with people that I thought were more likely to survive the tournament, even if they, for example, if Terunofuji is in the whole tournament, I think everyone's picking him. But because of that uncertainty, it's not a wise bet to make. And then for the last one, M11 through M17. I'm also guessing we might have gone for the same person here, so maybe we should.
We definitely went with the same
Okay,
guy.
so
We don't even need to say it. We both picked Takara
of
Fuji, right?
course, of
Yeah,
course.
it has been a common and predictable trend that someone at the very bottom of the Banzuke, who is a rookie, is going to just obliterate the bottom, and the rank and file.
Yep.
I mean, if you look at who's down there at the bottom with him, it's a lot of guys who are either has-beens or never will be's. So I think that not only am I going to not only is Takara Fuji my pick for that section, I think there is a very, very high likelihood that he gets double digits and might, much like Onosato, uh, be fighting in the Sanyaku late in the second week.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. I mean, we've seen this trend quite a lot lately. I'm not sure about how long it's
I
been
mean,
going on.
it's just been one Basho after another. Last
Yeah,
even though it was Onosato. Before
Ichiyama.
that, before that it was Ichi Yamamoto. His situation's different. I don't really count him, but before that it was Atami Fuji, and before that it was Hakuoho. So yeah, I think Takeru Fuji is that next young buck who is going to show that he is the real deal, and will probably be somewhere between M5 and M8 by May.
Yep, agreed. So that settles our Akachi Clash. Best of luck to you. Best of luck to everybody in it. And this is our first time competing. I hope we make our way up the Banzuke. On to our next segment here. You want to kick us off?
Yes, so we have the schedule out. I'm thinking now, I know that you don't know everybody on it, so we'll just, I guess, focus on, the names that we're both, most familiar with, and just sort of give our predictions and thoughts on it. So let's start with Teruno Fuji's first 2 days. Day one, he gets Nishikigi, who famously beat him back in sorry, not May, July of last year. Uh, in a big surprise to me. So they've now split their last two fights with one another. What do you think? Do you think that Nishikigi gets another upset, or do you think that Terunofuji is going to come out, like Godzilla, like Godzilla when he's just like powering up his laser blast?
The way I see it, if Teru competes, Teru wins. That's going to be the case almost every time I say it this entire tournament. I think 15 days, if he shows up in the dohyo, he's going to win that match with very, very rare exception. That was the case in the last tournament, obviously, where he won 13. He went 13-2 and won 14 of the 16 matches he competed in. I don't think anyone was expecting the two losses. And that's how I feel now. The real question, I think, is there any reason to suspect he won't be able to make it to these matches and will be Fusen?
He's going, so I have no reason to believe he won't make it to day one. The only thing that's going to stop him from, as you said, just tearing through everyone is going to be if he picks up an injury. But it doesn't even have to be a major one, like Terunofuji could just like bang his knee getting out of the bathtub and just be like, nah, I'm good, I fulfilled my duties last tournament. I'm not going to, risk anything, even if I'm like, 2-1 after 3 days. So I think, his presence is going to be a 100% vibe fest.
Yeah, that makes sense. And if that's the case and he's competing in the first 2 days, I think he wins both. I
All
just
right.
he's in immaculate form. I mean, he's an immaculate sumo wrestler. He's got it all. The only thing he doesn't have is a clean bill of health. But if he's there, that means he's got enough to get through the matches. And that last tournament really showed everybody that if he's even if he's competing through injury, he's still in a league of his own among the rest. So if he's so injured that he's not competing, that's the only thing I think that brings down his form enough that he's really losing significantly to anybody. I pick him against anybody that he is pitted against if he's in healthy enough to compete, I'd say.
Fair enough. All right. So next we have Kirishima, who in his first 2 days will take on two guys of truly opposite builds. You've got Abi and his obscenely long arms and legs on day one, and then you've got the perfectly spherical Atami Fuji on day two.
Tommy Fuji is perfect in every way. I love him. That said,
Everybody loves Atami Fuji.
yeah, of course.
He's like the Magic Johnson of sumo. It's like you have to literally invent reasons to not like the guy.
I would say I think Kirishima's got to win both. I mean, Atami Fuji, I'm really excited for him. He's not at that point in his career yet where I think he's going to be picking up many wins from Sanyaku, specifically from the Ozeki, from this very strong class of Ozeki. But he belongs in Makuchi division, absolutely. He belongs, in the middle to upper half of Makuchi division. But he's not the guy that's going to be beating Kirishima, in my opinion, just yet. Just yet, but he'll get there.
He certainly has that advantage of by being in the same stable as the Yokozuna of never having to get absolutely obliterated, the way he probably does in practice a few times per day, on a day that matters. So lucky for him.
Yeah, it
All
helps.
right, Hoshoryu. Day one, he gets the high flying Ura, and on day two, he gets to be the co-main event against Nishikigi, who you're going to be shocked by this stat. Nishikigi has won 4 straight against Hoshoryu.
Hmm. I want to believe in the power at the top of the Banzake. I want to believe that our Ozaki and Yokozuna can just steamroll the rest and be in a league of their own. Hoshoryu is probably the Ozaki that gives me the most, uh, skepticism. And I think if he's going to drop a loss here, I think it's probably going to be to someone like Nishikigi. I'd say Hoshoryu beats Ura, loses to Nishikigi.
Well, if this makes it easier for you to make your pick, he has won 7 of his last 8 day one matches.
All right, well then, yeah, I'm gonna stick with that. He's gonna beat Ura. He's the day one guy. Just like I think it's Mohamed Salah who scored in 5 straight seasons in the Premier League on the first day. Hoshoryu is
That's
gonna be that
crazy.
guy once again, and
Mhm.
I think he'll lose to Nishikigi on day two. How about you?
I excuse me. I'm willing to agree there. I think Man, like the only I could see him starting 0-2 if Aura like just catches him with something crazy, but Hoshoryu isn't really the kind of guy that gets caught with something crazy. Ironically he tends to get beat in a much more straightforward way. But yeah, I think 1-1 sounds about right as a start for him.
Yeah.
All right. In the second tier of Ozaki, we have Takakeisho going up against Asanoyama and then against Abi in the first 2 days.
This is the most painful topic for me is Takakeisho. I really love Takakeisho. I haven't been a sumo fan for terribly long, but I love Takakeisho. Um, I love his style, his interviews. I think he's great. And he's got a great personality, and he belongs there. And it's so sad to see the injury issues that he's been dealing with. The fact that he's managed to stay in Ozaki for so long, despite the injuries he's dealt with, is really impressive. Um, and it saddens me that with the type of injury he's dealing with, which is such a serious thing, that because of the rules the way they are, he's so heavily encouraged to compete right now where he really isn't able to. It's very upsetting. I believe he's going to do his best to get his 8 wins because, for those who aren't aware, if he gets 8 losses or more, he loses his Ozaki position. He would be Kataban. Um, and so he's going to fight for those 8 wins so he can get them. I don't know how wise it is. I just pray that we don't see any exacerbating of his injuries. And I also pray that he gets his 8 wins because if he's got the fortitude to give it that shot, I hope it's worth it for him. So as for the two guys that we're talking about here, Asano Yama's a really tough match. Asano Yama, assuming he's in good health versus Takakeisho, that's a tricky one. I'd love to know their records against each other.
So Takakeisho is 6-5 against Asanoyama,
So really not
and
much between
yeah,
them.
but Takakeisho won. Well, it's really not fair to go far beyond the last two because prior to the last time they had fought was 2021. So they've split their last two meetings, which both came last year.
Yeah, uh I'll say this much. I think Takakeisho will beat Abi. Um, and Abi will be 0-2 at the start, following in the expectation of the Komosubis and top M's being very poor at the beginning of the tournaments because of their Sanyaku competition. That's just the way it is right now. I think Takakeisho will beat Abi. He'll push him out, obviously. Asanoyama, I don't know. I don't know. I tend to think Asanoyama's got to be Takakeisho, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think Asanoyama will beat Takakeisho. I think Takakeisho is probably going to struggle for the first week. I wouldn't be surprised if he's 3-4, even 2-5, and then maybe rips through the second week.
What I could
Um,
really see happening is Takakeisha saying, I have a limited amount of strength and risk that I can take with my body. Um, I'm going to save my efforts for the people that I have a chance against. I think true athletes rarely think like that in a very like serious way. But his situation is a little different. Like he needs to be really conscious of his health and his future and everything like that. If he sees, okay, one day against Asanayama, one day against Abi, and I can go 1-1 at the end of this, I could see him just, accepting the Asanayama match as I'm probably not going to get this one. I'm not going to go all out. I'm not going to risk an injury and take on Abi a little bit more seriously, one that he has a better chance in, maybe. And I know the rankings of the two don't necessarily reflect that, but I think we all know that Osanayama over Abi probably in terms of their talent and their threat to Takakeisha. So, yeah, wishing him the best, really. Wishing him health. More than anything in this tournament, I just wish Takakeisha health. And then obviously to get 8 wins would be awesome.
all right. So now we have Koto Waka, who gets sort of a an interesting spread. So day one he faces Atami Fuji, but day two he then gets Asano Yama. Now he's 2-0 against Atami Fuji, but 0-2 against Asano Yama. I'm inclined to think that that trend continues. I think that day one he gets his win over Atami Fuji, who is still trying to figure out where he really belongs this high up. And day two, mm, I think he can beat Asano Yama day two.
I think he can. That was the one I was questioning. I think, yeah, Kotonowaka probably beats Atami Fuji. Again, Atami Fuji's just one of those guys that he's going to get plenty of wins in tournaments, but he's going to struggle against the Sanyaku, and that's fine. And it doesn't really reflect on him or his future. It's just you got to spend a lot of time competing against these guys to learn how to beat them. And he's just not, he hasn't quite learned that yet. Kotonowaka, on the other hand, he's been around and he's been doing it for a while. So I could easily see Kotonowaka taking down Atami Fuji and then probably beating Asanoyama, although I would not be shocked at all if we're saying after day two, wow, Asanoyama took down two Ozaki in his first two matches. Because you know who's done that recently? Hokuto Fuji, who started, I believe, with 3 wins against 3 Ozaki in his first 4 matches in a recent tournament, and then proceeded to drop off to a more realistic spot. I think I wouldn't be shocked at all if Asanoyama beat Kotonowaka in that second match. In fact, I did say in my Kachi Clash predictions that I thought Kotonowaka would struggle a little bit. I could see this being one of those early struggles.
Mm.
So, yeah, a bit of an upset. I think I'm going to go with Kotonowaka starting off 1-1.
Okay. So now we have dealt with the Ozaki. Let's I guess just wrap this up with the Sekiwake predictions. We've got Daisho, who we honestly he is the one Sanyaku who we have not said a single word of this entire time. I think that just because he's at the point where he's just, not he's just a perpetual 9 and 6 machine.
He's exactly
But
where he belongs, which is something you say a lot about certain wrestlers. They are right where they belong. They don't they're not weak enough to need to go down, or certainly there's no one up and coming who deserves their spot. But Daisho isn't an incumbent Ozaki or anything of the sort, really. He's a great Sanyaku, and I think Sekiwake is a good spot for him. And I think he'll probably go 8-7, 9-6, or maybe he'll have a really good tournament to go 10-5, but not compete for the Yusho.
all right, yeah, and he's going up against Meisei on day one, and against grandson Oho on day two.
I gotta give it to Daisho in the first match. Who's against in the second one? Sorry.
Second match, first time
Oh,
meeting against Oho.
Oho could get the upset. Oho is up and coming. I could absolutely see that happening for Oho. Um, I'll give it to him. I'll give it to Oho.
All right then. And last but certainly not least in love in the Sanyaku ranks, we have Wakamoto Haru, who gets those same matchups. He Wakamoto Haru gets grandson Oho on day one, and he will then take Meisei away from Daisho in day two. And it's
Wakamoto Haru 2-0, easy.
Yep,
Well,
he is 12-1
oh,
in 13 combined meetings against those other two.
yeah, I
So
think
I am in lockstep with you.
Wakamoto Haru, Daisho. I mean, these two guys, they can and most likely will beat anybody who is not an Ozaki or Yokozuna in every one of their matches. The problem is that because of their position, they're going to fight all those guys. And that's why you're going to expect Wakamoto Haru and Daisho to be having 9-6 records and 10-5 records because they always have to fight usually 4 or 5 matches against those guys. Um, they're right where they belong and they'll probably be there for a long time.
Yep, I foresee 8 wins should be easy. Maybe they'll have a losing record if something goes horribly wrong. Or maybe even if just one of the Ozeki or Yokozuna decide that they just want to be a god today. Um, yeah, so that's all of the Sanyaku. I guess I could we can just throw in a couple of other folks that we have our eyes on, so to speak. Um, Actually, you know what? Now let's change up the topics a little bit. So, who are some wrestlers that you really have your eye on, maybe outside of the Makuchi division?
Yeah, well, I guess the obvious places to start are our two slowly returning guys of Hakuoho and Wakataka Kage, who are now competing in Juryo. Um, they're both in there. I don't know if there's any chance that an excellent record here could get them up to Makuchi in the next tournament. I'm not sure if we've ever seen someone go up from Juryo 10 or Juryo 13 that far, but we got to think we should hopefully be seeing them by the what would it be? The July tournaments, I would
So
be
to
thinking.
give you, so to answer what you just said, Takeru Fuji just got only just by the skin of his teeth managed to get into Makuuchi after going 13-2 with a U show from J10. So mathematically speaking, if Wakataka Kage goes 13-2 with a U show, from his exact spot, he should get in. The
Yeah.
route for Hakuoho is probably he needs a Zen Yusho. He probably needs to go 15-1 in order to 15-0 in order to
A lot has to
return.
go perfect, and Hakuoho was not perfect in the last tournament, although he had a good one.
Mhm.
A lot has to go perfectly for both of them, really, to make it up to Makuchi. So I would say we can reasonably expect they're both going to be back by July, but by May might be just a little bit. A lot of things would have to go their way for that to happen. Not just them getting their wins, but also some certain people would have to get their losses for that to be happening. So I was curious about that, but I definitely think it's always exciting seeing these guys who so overmatch their competition. I remembered watching Wakataka Kage in the last tournament competing in Makushita, and the face he had of I can't believe I'm wasting my time in these matches, against these opponents was it's just so entertaining to watch. Guys who are so ready to be back at the top level, going through the kind of rigmarole of earning their way back up again, and it's exciting to see. But in a way, it's also exciting to see the guys they're up against getting a taste of what that kind of competition is like, especially the ones who give them a good fight. So I always love that. I like seeing these guys in the lower divisions kind of giving that sort of experience to other guys and giving a nice show for those of us who can't stay up for Makuchi who live in the East Coast. So
Yeah, it's like getting to see, like Derek Jeter or A-Rod playing for, a minor league team while they're recovering. It's like that they don't belong here, but it's cool to sort of see them, getting some at bats against, guys who are probably like accountants for a living.
absolutely. How about you?
For me, it's two Ukrainian guys who I'm just a big fan of. Shishi, who is in Jorio. This like last year, like late last year, everyone was saying that like he's, the next Tochi no Shin, he's the next he's like the next, Eastern European guy who's going to dominate in Makuuchi, and last two tournaments have just been very disappointing. Um I wonder if he just has sort of reached his temporary ceiling in like the mid Jorio ranks. I am hoping that it's not, and that he's able to and that he's not in like the verge of some sort of decline. But it does really sort of feel like he's, somewhere between J8 and J5 where he really belongs. But I just want to see him improve his technique. He's got the brute strength. He is probably just pound for pound one of the strongest guys in Jurio right now, but he has got no technique. And, as soon as he figures out what the hell to do with his hands, while he's fighting someone, he'll be a monster. The other guy who I don't think you and I have ever even spoken about is Onishiki, who is currently the Sandanme number 10. No, it's Sandanme 18. This kid is amazing. He is 14-0 from Ukraine. I think he's only, he's 19 years old, has not lost a fight, but what impresses me most about this kid is that not only has he not lost, he's never gone backwards. It's like you watch Onishiki fight, and it's just, they go at the Tachi, and then it's just a second passes, and then he just pushes forward and just walks the guy out. Granted, a lot of these guys are just, has-beens and never will be's that are down there in, Jonakuchi or Jonidan, but it's really cool watching somebody like that climb the ranks so steadily. And I think there's a really good chance that he continues to in Sandanme, and I would not be surprised if he wins the very rare third straight division Yusho, which is a very not an extremely rare feat, but one that has not been done by many people who haven't gone on to do great things in sumo.
I'd love that. I mean, I take more of an interest in Makushita and Sandanme than I would plan to, partially because of the fact that, watching on the East Coast means that those are the matches that are on around bedtime. It's very hard to be able to stay up for Makuchi matches and see them live. That's just the reality of what it's like watching it from here. So I see a lot of Sandanme and Makushita, and it's exciting. It's exciting when you catch someone who, they seem to be the next big thing, and you never know who that's going to be. Even when they make it up to Makuchi, you never know who's really going to make it. But there's always that excitement in what someone could be and the potential they show, and that's always great. I mean, yeah, there's also Waka Ikari is also someone to keep an eye on. Didn't have a
Mhm.
great last tournament, but it could just be part of the growing pains. But he's been really exciting to see towards the top of Makushita. And yeah, I'd love to keep an eye on Ishiki. I I think that's a great story to have never lost a match so far. It's going to happen eventually. Everybody
Oh
loses.
yeah, I mean, for all I know, it'll happen on, on
They
day
won't.
one or something. But because there really is something to be said for the difference in talent level from one division to another. Like the more you watch, the more obvious it gets. Especially when you see like actually great sumo wrestlers back in those bottom ranks, seeing what that difference is. So you know, he's the guy that I've got my eye on, and I look forward to seeing him represent represent Ukraine well.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say is the big story of the tournament that you're keeping an eye on?
Uh, if we are focusing solely on the tournament and not anything going on outside, and I think we should actually say something about that thing before we really close up shop for the day. I think it has to be the is this going to be that sort of real changing of the guard kind of tournament?
Hmm.
Like last tournament, we saw a lot of the older guys really show their age by picking up injuries. I'm talking Aoyama, Asanoyama to an extent, Hokuto Fuji, Takayasu. Like those guys picked up big injuries that might, permanently relegate them to like the lower end of Makuuchi. And a lot of the guys that are coming in to replace them are like mid 20s or younger. And I think it'll be really cool to see if maybe this is the year where the guys we've had our eyes on for 6 months, the Hakuoho, Atami Fuji, Takeru Fuji, Onosato, you know, Hoshoryu even because he's only 24. If these guys are really ready to really lift this entire division up and make it their own. How about you?
I think that makes a lot of sense. I agree. It's the question of, is it going to happen now that we're going to see this change happening? I think in the last tournament it was, well, is this it? Is Karishima going to become a Yokozuna? And Kotonowaka become an Ozaki, one or the other or both. We got to see Kotonowaka become an Ozaki, and that seemed like a kind of changing of the guard, but it almost felt like Teru having such an amazing tournament was a reminder to everybody that it's not time yet. We're still living in the Terunofuji era. You're not out of it just yet. And I'm curious to see if that happens here. I mean, it's always possible that this is the tournament where Teru loses five and actually competes and loses five. It could happen. He could lose more than that.
Hmm.
Um, or it could be an injury, whatever else. It could also be a tournament where we see Kirishima or Hoshoryu win 14,
Hmm.
including maybe against the Yokozuna, something like that. So it sort of feels like we're in this period of we're waiting to see if something changes in terms of uh, that real rank of who's superior in the division, and we just don't know yet. We've talked before about that sort of congestion at the Ozaki rank, and we're not really sure there's an obvious favorite among the four. Maybe Kirishima, but that might partially be due to health, if nothing else.
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess that's not really so simple as calling that a storyline, but it definitely seems like that's the prevailing trend of what these tournaments have been about. And injuries have been a really big theme in the last few tournaments, especially
Yeah.
among some of the top level competitors. So maybe the big story is, can people stay healthy, and who? Can we see everybody compete for 15 matches, or a lot of them compete for 15? Can we see Takakeisho survive all 15 and Terunofuji survive all 15? Hokuto Fuji, Takayasu. That might be my biggest. It's just, will they make it through? But I definitely agree with your points as well. And before we
Yeah.
wrap up, do you wanna get to it?
Yeah, let's just talk about it. So the Hokuseiho situation and everything going on with Miyagino stable with Hokuseiho, rising star in sumo, 21, 22 years old, huge body, extremely boring sumo wrestler to watch. I mean, which is one of the reasons I'm really not going to miss him. Got caught, being a bully, like in pretty much uh, the most awful ways that you can be a bully to someone that you are living with full time. Everything from, setting people's hair on, like trying to set people's hair on fire to gluing their wallets shut, locking them in bathrooms for hours on end, like awful stuff. I have got no real sympathy for for bullies. So as far as Hokuseiho, all I have to say to him is go back to school. Please do something else, and I hope that you become a more productive member of society
Yeah,
after that.
yeah, well said. I think, unfortunately, sometimes in cultures like these, people adopt this mentality of, oh, well, that's the way it's supposed to be done. It's normal. That's how you toughen people up. That's not how you toughen people up. The way you toughen people up is by competing well, and showing them how to be the best at your sport. Stuff like this, it doesn't help anybody. It's just putting people off from taking the sport seriously, and trying to become the best sumo wrestlers. So there's no place for it. I totally agree with your points. And yeah, you know what? Like, hopefully he finds another calling in life, because I don't think being a mentor for younger sumo wrestlers was something he was ever going to be capable of. Um, and I think it's great that the JSA took it as seriously as they did, to really try to, uh, pre prevent things like this from happening as often as possible. They've really been trying to take a serious effort against, letting bullying happen. So I applaud them for that. Because, for all the things that the JSA does that are questionable, I think that was the right call. It was the obvious call, and I think that makes sense. And then I guess the other topic that's conjoined to it is the punishment for Miyagino's stable.
Yeah, so gosh, it's a topic that has also permeated into American sports as well, because it's not a story that you followed, but this time around, sorry, not this time, but summer of last year, there was a hazing scandal at Northwestern University, and it resulted in their head coach of about 15 years being fired, not because of what he knew but because of what he didn't know, and the decision makers calling that sort of a dereliction of duty on his part. Now, there's been a lot made. So, the long and short of the punishment is that Miyagino, the former Hakuho, the greatest sumo wrestler of all time, has effectively been stripped of all of his privileges as a stable owner and a stable coach. He's going to get a massive salary cut, and it seems very, very likely that the stable is going to be taken from him altogether. A lot of people think it's unfair. A lot of people think that this is a case of the Japan Sumo Association singling out and picking on Hakuho for being so independent and so all of this and that. And honestly, I don't care. I don't really care about the double standard. You allowed a culture of bullying to permeate in your program. You did not establish yourself as someone that your pupils were willing to talk to about their bullying situation. And if they did, and you ignored them, or you did not believe them, or worse, you helped Hokuseiho cover it up to help advance his career and by extension yours, then you deserve whatever you get. I only hope that this standard is consistently maintained for all similar bullying scandals going forward.
That's really the key to it is the
Yep.
consistency, and that's the part that I think gives people the most uh, concern about that punishment is whether it was this harsh because of the JSA's own issues with Hakuho. But that being said, if this is the standard punishment for this type of behavior,
Well,
that's
it's not. I
fine.
mean, that's the main thing. The main, not to cut you off, too abruptly, but the thrust of the opposition to it is that it hasn't been the standard. And while most people are looking at the past, I'm choosing to look at the future and say, let this be the new standard. Let this be, let the JSA use Hakuho and say to others, we literally did this to the most powerful person in the sumo world. It will happen to you unless you right your ships.
Absolutely. It certainly, if we're taking the optimistic lens that the JSA is not, conspiring against Hakuho here and ignoring the seriousness of the matter just to get some kind of political win over him, and we're looking at it optimistically, it sends a heck of a message to be this serious about the matter when it comes to Hakuho, that if they're earnest in their effort to try to shut down bullying permanently, this is a great way of sending that message, one that everyone's going to hear. Because you know what, if it was a lower profile stable and a lower profile head of that stable, the topic would not be as big as it is.
We
So
literally had this issue, I think, 2 to 4 months ago with Naruto stable, So hopefully this is that new standard and that it is applied more consistently moving forward.
absolutely. Well, those topics aside, we got a lot to be excited about in the tournament.
Oh yes.
And I'm glad it's back. I'm really excited to see some stuff going on in the lower ranks. I'm excited to see, of course, in Makuchi, and I'm excited to see who shows up. That's really my big question for the first couple days. Who shows up? Who makes it past the first day is another question. So
Mm.
I just want to see everybody competing. I want to see people healthy. That's really that's my big wish for March. Any last words you want to part with before we go for today?
The shortest off season in sports is finally over, and I could not be happier.
That's right. Oh, it's so nice. It's so nice. The ever presence of sumo. I love that. So, well, thanks a lot. It's been really fun, and we're looking forward to checking in again, maybe at the end of the tournament. So, best of luck, everybody, and a special best of luck to my favorite guy, Takakeisho.
Mm.
Alrighty.
Later, guys.